Hi, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Fandom Report. I'm your host, Catherine Mora, and I'm joined today by Nathaniel, who is
Hello,
another
everybody.
fellow TikToker. You guys might recognize him from his very popular and very entertaining Singing Through the MCU series.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Yes. No, thank you for joining. I'm not going to lie, I almost just said swinging through the MCU just because that's my favorite one.
A special episode.
Yes, but thank you so much for joining us today. I'm very excited to be talking
Of
to you.
course. My pleasure, and I'm excited to be here.
Yes. So today, everybody, we will be talking about particularly Multiverse of Madness, which is coming out later this year, what we want to see, things that we're hoping for, and just talking about like the multiverse in general in phase four so far.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yes. So Nathaniel, I have to ask, what like when you're I guess I should also just throw in like a spoiler alert for pretty
Yes.
much everything,
I was about to
everything that we've
say.
seen so far. Yeah.
I was
Everything
about to
in
say.
phase
I was like,
four. Yes. So,
gotta be a
yeah,
little fun
because
about it.
major spoilers are going to be discussed in this. But when you were watching Spider-Man No Way Home in the theater,
Mhm.
and at the very end, the teaser for Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness came on, like initial reaction, like thoughts about the trailer in general.
Well, first I was thrown off. I was like, well, no, my first thought was, man, Doctor Strange is really going through it because he just had this entire movie, and then we go straight to all these problems. I'm like, poor Steven. He is
Yes.
just going through the ringer. But I'm wondering when the switch is for Wanda, because we see her
Mm-hmm.
approached by Doctor Strange. He's like, I'm not here about that. She's like, oh, okay, all nice. And then she's with the Darkhold. I'm like, I like wonder what will happen to bring us there.
Mm-hmm.
That was my
Yeah.
first thought. I was like, what are we missing? What are we missing in between?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited for that because we
Yeah.
know she has to be a villain. I mean,
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
that's no doubt. It's just, is that just something that is gonna like slowly, like the Darkhold slowly poisoning her, or is it gonna be like an event, or they see somebody, or like she sees her
Mhm.
kids when they're trying to
Yeah.
say, like there's gonna
Hmm.
be some moment that we're gonna be like, oh no, and she's just gonna go crazy.
Yes. No, I totally agree. I'm leaning towards it being her kids, especially because that's like the last thing we really see of her in WandaVision in that after credit scene where she's
Oh yeah.
astral projecting and she's there with the Darkhold and she hears I think she
Hmm.
hears Billy. I don't know if she hears both of them, but she hears her kids.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so that's definitely going to be I think a major motivation for her to maybe tap into the darker magic to like try to get her kids back. it's it's funny because I always see on like especially TikTok like everybody being like, I know Wanda is going to kill people and I am in full support of this.
Yes.
Whatever she does, I support her decisions.
Yeah, all the sounds that's like she did nothing wrong. She did
She did
nothing.
nothing
Like
wrong.
it's like me when Wanda starts killing off characters. It's
Yes,
like,
it's like I support the empowerment of women. That's
yes, the
how.
girl boss. It's a girl
Yes.
boss moment. It's like, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, no, that's so, and the fingers start
Yes.
turning black
Mhm.
like Agatha. So I saw that, and then I see people making TikToks about it because I didn't, of course, notice it in my first watch.
No, no, not
But
either.
then I'm like, what?
Mhm.
That's I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, and it also makes me wonder if potentially Agatha will make a reappearance, especially because she says that line like, "You don't know what you've like done. You're gonna need my
Uh-huh.
help." So I'm like, okay, maybe Agatha
That's right.
will show
That's
up
right.
again, and
Because she
maybe
has
because
her own, she's gonna have her own show.
yes,
So
yes,
maybe whether that will be like her own show coming out of nothing and she like, comes out of Westview again in her own show,
mhm,
or like if she's brought back for help now and then like continues in her own show.
yeah. Yeah, I honestly I didn't even think about that for some reason. I don't know why I just assumed it was going to be like more like a backstory origin
Ooh,
thing. Like
that
she
would be
was like
interesting
in
though.
like historical. I was like, oh, that I don't know why I assumed that's what it
Kind
was
of
going to
kind
be.
of like what Boba Fett has been doing. How it's been
Yes.
like primarily like filling in the spaces we don't. That's
Mhm.
interesting. That's actually, I would like to see that though.
Yeah, I would like what you were saying about Boba Fett. Like, I would like it to be like a balance between like the flashbacks and like what's going on with her now, whether she's in Multiverse of Madness or not, like post
Mhm.
Westview Agatha.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I wonder if we're wondering about her coming in Multiverse of Madness, whether
Mhm.
she would be brought by Wanda, like with Doctor Strange, be like, "Hey, yo, help us
Mhm.
out," or after Wanda turns and is like, "I
Right.
gotta do this stuff," then she's like, "Get out of here and help me." I wonder in
Mhm.
what context she'll be like, if she is,
Yeah,
taken
if
out of her
she's
like
in it.
prison of Westview. I wonder
Mhm.
if it'd be like, "Oh yeah, help us be good," or "help me be bad."
Yeah. Um,
Interesting. Yeah.
and that it would be really funny actually if Evan Peters, Ralph Boner, which
Oh
I still refuse to believe is true. I still refuse to believe the Ralph Boner is true.
I do
He
too.
he has to be X-Men Quicksilver. Like there's
There has to.
yeah.
I've seen so many things where they like try and explain it, and I'm like,
Mhm.
no matter what you say, I'm gonna believe you because I want to believe what you're saying. People are like, "Oh well, in this, this show in the '80s, the best friend's name was Boner spelled like this, so it was still Wanda projecting." And I'm like,
Mm.
"You're right, you're right." Even though like I don't know, I just like there has to be a way, especially
Well,
because like Feige has like or they've like redeemed themselves with
mhm.
bringing back Andrew and Toby and not like completely lying about that.
Right.
Because we're like, what if they pull that again? They didn't. So I
Mhm.
feel like they're probably gonna. I don't
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because if you think about all the actors they've brought back to reprise their characters, they brought back Charlie Cox, they brought back Vincent D'Onofrio, Andrew and Toby. They oh God, what's his name? How am I forgetting his name? J. Jonah Jameson.
know. Oh
What's the
yes,
actor?
yes.
Yes,
Um.
but I'm forgetting.
Oh. No, it's the name I always forget, and then forget it because of Whiplash, and then I'm like, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
him,
yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah, and like all the villains from in Spider-Man No Way Home, like
So they're clearly staying true to it, and
yeah.
which I appreciate because also I would feel bad for the actor they would put in that place because we'd all
Yeah.
be like, "Oh no, we wish we had this." Like, so that would be like an
Hmm.
unfortunate position to put like a new actor be like, "I'm in a Marvel film," but they're like replacing a beloved character. That's a little unfortunate. So I feel like whether Ralph Boner actually is just Ralph Boner, whether they'll still bring Evan Peters back as another variant if he
Hmm.
wasn't like already a variant.
Right. Right.
But what
I
are the
mean,
odds of her
I,
using him? If
exactly. Exactly. And like I'll say this too, the fact that everybody in Westview had a fake name under the hex. So that would imply that Ralph Boner is not his actual name.
and even
Therefore,
though
he
it's the
is
papers,
yeah,
because
is
people argue that like the bills and stuff, they're like it was from before this and this. I'm like, I thought the whole point of it was that like she was creating like literally everything that was there.
yes, she was
So
rewriting all of it. So it's like, oh yes, of course, this stack of bills is the one thing that Wanda did not touch.
yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, this is the one real thing. It's like,
Hmm.
what? No, like it has to all be part of her, subconscious projection of this world,
Hmm.
which is still what I'm choosing to believe,
Yes. Yes.
whether that be true or not.
Like I
I
am
still
just
believe it.
waiting for the moment in Multiverse of Madness where everything like slows down and then Sweet Dreams starts playing. That is all I want.
Yes, they have. I mean, there's so many opportunities. Which before No Way Home, we're like, it's such a great opportunity to bring Andrew and Toby back. Like they'd be
Mhm.
stupid not to, and they clearly weren't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like I feel like they know they have so many chances, like for
Mhm.
those moments, like the all the callbacks to different movies. They have so many chances for that, and they know it did
Yep.
well in No Way Home.
Yep.
You have to be like, oh, it makes me excited to think about
I
the
know.
potential moments because that would be amazing. That would be
Yes.
amazing.
That I've been wanting that since he showed up in WandaVision.
Seriously,
So fingers crossed.
I know, and it also because they had the reshoots
Yes.
to add more cameos. So they could have gone, can we write this wrong? Maybe we can. We have
Hmm.
no idea whether like new people could have been part of the cameos or past people.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's true, but I've always seen the thing where it's like, um, oh, I don't know his name, but Chris Evans coming back as
Oh,
it's like
yes, he's a
Hydra,
human torch, right?
or as Human Torch,
Human torch, yes.
or as Captain America if he went to Hydra.
Oh, Captain. I think it's Captain Hydra.
I
I
think it
think
is
I
too.
think yeah.
I feel like I feel like Chris Evans has to be one of the cameos because he's so beloved. Even if it's just for
Yes.
like a moment, I'm
Hmm.
kind of hoping he's either like Captain Hydra. I probably he probably won't be Human Torch just well maybe as a variant, but
As a
like just
variant,
because that will be like starting the franchise over, even though he like
right?
finished it, you
Yeah.
know, since they have the movie later and the
Hmm.
probably continue in the MCU. I wouldn't
Yeah.
think he would like come as the Human Torch, but maybe as like a fun callback, kind of
Yeah.
like Spider-Man, seeing each other. I feel like I don't know, but I feel
Well,
like he's one of the
because
people that we all love that he'll probably
mhm,
hopefully be there.
I agree. No, and the thing is, as Human Torch, it would be great if they brought Chris Evans and Michael B. Jordan because they both are like new Marvel characters that have
Uh-huh.
previously played Human Torch. So
Mm-hmm.
that would be, and there's still people who are alive in the MCU who would recognize them as like a different person. But
Mm-hmm.
it's like, no,
And
actually,
I wonder if they do that because that'd be a little meta if they were
yeah,
like,
yeah,
"Is that Captain America?" And they're like, "No." I
no.
wonder if they go that way.
If it's like Steve, who the hell is Steve?
What? No, that's not me. No, yeah, seriously. It's so funny. Thinking. Well, I'm very excited for Fantastic Four and the
Yeah.
just like what potential will happen. I know it probably won't be John Krasinski, but I personally choose to believe because I just love him so much.
Yeah.
And there was a SNL interview where he seemed a little sus, where
Mhm.
he was like really ripped, and he like answered his part of his like opening monologue. He's like,
Mhm.
"Oh, and I've been working out for another Jack Reacher." He was like, "Oh, and I'm buff because I've been working out for another Jack Reacher film." I was like, "Do you need to say that? Is this for another film? Are you
That's
not supposed to
suspicious.
say?" Yeah, that's a little suspicious, Krasinski. Um, but what is it? How people are saying that the Stark Tower, the reason they're always like somebody else bought it, somebody else bought it, somebody else bought
Yeah.
it, is because Reed Richards bought it.
It's like the Baxter building or something like that. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And because the thing is too, like they have made, especially considering like that the last two things we've seen of the MCU are based in New York. Hawkeye and Spider-Man No Way Home. And they've made an effort to not show us what was formerly Avengers Tower.
Oh yeah, and Clint mentioned it, and I feel like they
Mhm.
mentioned it in another. They didn't mention No Way Home, but they did in
Uh,
an interview.
I know that they mentioned Stark Industries a few times, but I don't know if they mentioned the tower itself.
Yeah, or maybe
Yeah.
because I feel like with Happy or
Mhm.
something, or maybe because we saw other facilities when he was
Yes.
under investigation. They said StarTech's missing, blah 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 blah.
Hmm.
But we never saw the tower. And Clint was
Yeah.
like, "Oh yeah, Tony sold that." Um, but I know that in an interview with Jacob Zendaya and Tom,
Hmm.
when they were like, "Blah blah blah blah," do you know how did the Stark Tower? And Tom was like, he's like, I know who has the Stark Tower, and they're like, "Don't say it, don't say it, don't say it." Everybody's like, "Oh, Tom knows." So that's all I've heard about it.
Hmm.
That's all I've seen, but I feel like it's probably Reed Richards.
Probably. I mean, I feel like that makes the most sense that it would be, especially because they've already established that yes, we are going to do the Fantastic Four and the whole thing with selling the tower. That seems just like a very easy way to like reestablish, like, okay, it's moving from one team to another.
It does.
It's not, we don't have to like create a new fake building in New York
Yeah, and
City.
it's early, so they're
Mhm.
not like in the Fantastic Four movie. They're like, "Oh, by the way, this Stark Tower you've known forever, it's actually mine now." They've like been setting it up. So you're
Yeah.
like, "Who bought it? Who bought it? Who bought it?" And then
Mhm.
finally, okay, this is who has the tower now.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for those films. Cuz isn't that who's the who's the villain? Maybe isn't that when people are saying that we might see Doctor Doom or
Hmm.
right? Because we have a
Probably.
lot of
Yeah.
those villains that are like starting to come in, like Doctor Doom,
Mhm.
um, obviously Kang. and
Yes.
variants of Kang. And who's
Hmm.
the, is it Morda? No, no. Who's the head? Floating
Oh,
head.
is Modoc?
Yeah.
Modoc.
Yeah, Modoc,
Yeah,
Modoc.
Modoc.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was like Murdoch, Mordo, those are two other characters. No, yeah, Modoc. Like all those people are like apparently going to be phased in, whether that's like Quantumania, which I'm oddly excited for because
Yeah,
I
I feel like Ant-Man films are severely underrated, and I really hope that this is the one that people are finally going to wake up and like smell the hype.
oh seriously, I because I love any heist film. So the fact
Yeah.
that it was like a heist film, but it was also Marvel and like a superhero film, I was like, this is amazing. And then people are like, oh yeah, Ant-Man's okay. I'm like, what? This is definitely like in my top five. And
Hmm.
also Paul Rudd is such a gem.
Yes,
He says
he's a treasure. He's a national
he's
treasure.
such a his age is like fine wine. Literally, he could be around forever. And
Hmm.
I know people were was Ant-Man and the Wasp. That was like right before. That was right before Endgame. I think
Yes.
it was Captain Marvel, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and Endgame, right? Or maybe the other way around.
I think it was. I think it's flipped. I think it's Ant-Man the
Flipped.
Wasp and then
Yeah.
Captain Marvel. Yeah.
So because of that, I feel like people were like towards both Captain Marvel and Ant-Man and the Wasp since it
Hmm.
wasn't Infinity War. They're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, these movies don't like nothing really happens in these movies." But I still enjoyed them,
Yeah.
especially like because I just love the Ant-Man franchise anyway. So I was like, "Ooh, a
Mhm.
sequel? I love this."
Yeah.
So I hope Ant-Man 3 will be kind of a little redemption arc for
Yeah.
my boy Paul Rudd and
Hmm.
Evangeline because
Yes.
they're so good.
They
They're so
are. They are. They're really great together as a team. They're great as their characters individually. I am a little upset that and I know that they had to do it because of like the 5 year gap in Endgame.
uh,
I am a little upset that they recast Cassie because I
yeah.
adored that little girl so much, but
No, I
it's
know.
fine. They got to do what they got to do.
They gotta do. And but that was a good as much as like I hated it and didn't want it, it was a good like real life consequence. Not
Hmm.
not the recasting, but like the age difference
Yes. Yeah.
where we don't get to see that little girl anymore. It was
Hmm.
like and also I've seen like because I see the edits, and stuff where
Yeah.
it's like, oh, Scott's like the reason Scott did everything was to be in Cassie's life and to be a dad in Cassie's life. So under house arrest and everything, like that was all to be in Cassie's life. And
Hmm.
like the only thing taken away from him was her childhood, and he comes
Yeah.
back and I was like, just
I
sobbing looking at this TikTok, and I'm like, I never realized that.
yeah.
So yeah, I know that. So that's a sad, but like real life Marvel world consequence that like that goes hand in hand with there's something else along those lines where it's like I thought I'm glad they included because they easily could have
Hmm.
been like, oh, there's something else or this. We'll let this character have this. I can't think of it right now, but it's those things that are like really sad. But it's
Hmm.
like I'm glad you did that because it makes it feel realer and not like these people are invincible and they're superheroes and they win everything.
Hmm.
So like nothing ever goes wrong,
Yeah.
you
No,
know?
the one that I'm thinking of right now, and maybe this is the same one you were trying to remember, is how Tony Stark basically agreed to invent time travel so that he could bring Peter back. And then,
Yeah.
and then he dies, but he dies so that Peter and the rest of the world can live and, go on with their lives. But then Peter, in the end, like, is essentially erased from
I
existence.
know.
And it's
Oh
like,
my gosh, that was such a sad edit I saw for like Happy. Did you
mhm,
you probably saw where it's like
probably.
Happy loses his best friend, he loses
Mhm,
his girlfriend,
mhm.
and he loses Peter, and then he can't remember why any of them died, like what any of them died for, because he can't remember Peter, and I'm like,
Oh God. Oh no.
no, because that's so true,
Oh, that is true.
because he doesn't know
That is
why
true.
Tony did that, and he doesn't know
Yeah,
why it made, and it's like, ah. But
that
also just the
hurts.
whole it does hurt. And the whole end of No Way Home was a good real life like whoa, like did not expect you to do this. And also
Mhm.
like how it doesn't say loving aunt on her
Yes.
tombstone because he never existed. It's like those things it's like that wasn't necessary, but I'm glad you
It's
did
like
it.
it's like
I'm
you
glad
did
you
this
did
for
that.
what?
I'm like, why'd you do it? But good job. But it hurts. It
It's like
hurts.
I will be billing you for emotional damages, but thanks
Yes.
anyway.
Yes, exactly. I'm billing you for my therapist, but yes, thank you for doing it.
Hmm.
They've definitely been I say this before every like big movie or big project when I'm sure you've experienced this as we're like putting out these theories and fun like videos about it and people are like stop theorizing or like you're ruining the movie or blah
Hmm.
blah 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 um or they're like, oh, they're not smart enough to do this, or they've failed us before. I'm always like, have faith because they
Yeah,
have yet to let us down. If anything, like let us down, oh, Ralph Boner, or blah, blah, like those are very
yeah.
small things. Like they are very good at their jobs, and No Way Home
Mhm.
proves that. Where
Yes,
like we thought, oh no, are they not gonna be in it? Or like this last little battle, it looks like nothing's really happened. Like what's happening here, but like the context that we didn't know and what happened before
hmm,
then made that last battle so cool and it just kept going. Like you would
yeah,
have thought, oh, they beat them, done. Like they know they know what they're doing, and no
yeah,
amount of theorizing we can do or skits we can make is gonna ruin this multi-million dollar movie and
yeah.
franchise. Like they are very good at what they do.
Yes. No, that and that's the thing too. They've been doing this for over a decade, like,
Yeah,
and pretty much every single film that they've done has been a complete success. And fans have different feelings, I should say, about
yeah,
certain films and franchises within the MCU. And it's like that's to be expected. We
of
we
course,
all have our favorite characters. We all have things that we would like to see, but at the end
of
of the
course.
day, when you look at how they were able to like create the entire Infinity Saga, just the Infinity Saga alone over the
Yeah,
course of like 10, 11 years. The fact that they were able to do that, like you were saying, have a little faith. Like they've proven they
literally.
can do a multi-movie over the course of a very long time and like
Yeah,
have the story make sense in the
or
end.
like 24 movies. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, no big deal. No big deal.
Exactly. Well, there was something where I think people were in Loki were like, "Oh no, they're introducing the big bad too fast," or like, "blah blah blah
Yeah.
blah blah," or "This is going to be a really short little saga," instead of
Hmm.
like Thanos, who was, I mean, I wouldn't say he was like the. I guess he was still the big bad over like the Avengers and stuff, but like we
Hmm.
weren't really like aware of that. So I'd more count
Yeah.
him like kind of the back half of the Infinity Saga,
Hmm.
more than like he was there Iron Man 1,
Yeah.
he wasn't
So,
really, but
oh, I was
no,
gonna
go ahead.
ask, have you watched Game of Thrones ever?
I've not watched Game of
Okay.
Thrones,
Okay. So
but I'm
for
not
I'll just
going to, so you can say something
okay.
about it.
Okay.
You
So
can spoil it.
for those of you who
I'm not
have
gonna watch
seen
it.
it, for the people who have seen it, this will make sense to you. And if you haven't, I'm sorry.
Okay.
But so because the majority of the show is focused on like the political bad guys and like the wars that families are fighting against each other. But in the
Okay.
background, there's like the White Walkers who are like the ice zombies who are going to come and kill everybody. They're not very present in like the main storyline, but they are essentially the big bad. So it's
Uh-huh.
something similar to that for me with
Yeah,
well, not
yeah.
Tony, Thanos. Kind of, that they're there and they're in the background, like,
hmm
but there's not much the heroes can do about it at the moment. They have other things to deal with right now,
Like
and
Loki and then
yes,
other bad guy here and Ultron
yes,
and blah 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 blah. Yeah.
yes, and it's like, and the thing is too with Loki, in the Avengers is like that was like the first taste that we got of Thanos, essentially. Like
Yeah.
but then it was like years before we got anything else of Thanos. It was like they were
Yeah.
sprinkling it here, like throughout. It They introduced the big bad of the Infinity Saga in by the end of the phase one.
hmm
Like
Yeah.
if you think about like proportionally what all of the Infinity Saga is to like Loki, the series, it
hmm
probably is about the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because Loki was
Yeah.
only a 6 episode show.
hmm Oh, I loved Loki. Did you
Yeah.
like Loki?
Loki was not my favorite. I will say it is not my favorite. I enjoyed it for like I found it entertaining, but
hmm
like there story wise, there were things that I didn't totally agree with, didn't appreciate that much. But I'm also not like, Loki was the worst show ever. Like,
Oh, no. Yeah, no. I
yeah.
I really appreciated it as like a character study and just
Hmm.
like also just diving into like just Tom Hiddleston's
Yes.
acting.
Mhm.
I that just like just pulled me to him, like watching him
Mhm.
have to like watch through his entire life and like how he's dealing with like
Mhm.
finally having, a friend and I mean, I don't know how I feel about like Sylvie and like love interest, but still
Yeah.
like feeling loved or feeling
Mhm.
like understood, that was
Right.
just like heartbreaking for me. And also seeing him
Mhm.
miss Thor, I was,
I
oh
know.
no. You know the shot of him like turning around when it's like raining and they're walking into Roxxon or the
Mhm.
whatever, like,
Yes.
and I seen edits of that, of course, but it's like just like seeing that Loki and I don't know, because we're gonna see more of him, which I
Yes.
love, but I love seeing that kind of I wouldn't say anti-hero, I would say like it, because I know people were like, this isn't the same Loki, or like I can't watch it because it's not the same one we saw in the Avengers.
Mhm.
But I really enjoyed how they like were, because I feel like if we just watched a show of the Loki from the Avengers,
Mhm.
it would be a little like exactly where it is in the Avengers. Like there
Right.
wouldn't be much growth, which a
Mhm.
lot, or at least a lot of Phase 4 has all been about character growth, which is
Yeah.
also why I love it. Having
Yeah.
every character show and like Falcon and Winter Soldier and WandaVision,
Mhm.
it's always been like let's look at them and watch this, like see how the characters affected by everything that's happened, everything that's happening, as opposed to throwing everybody in an Avengers movie and we see everybody for like a total of like 20 minutes and 20 minutes, like I
Mhm.
really love how we're like, no, this is just looking at how Loki's feeling about this and how Wanda's being affected by like grief of losing, Vision, and Sam and Bucky losing Steve, and how
Mhm.
like their relationship with each other and the world is just like, oh, it's just like, and Hawkeye,
Yes.
um with Clint, and seeing him have to deal with, not having Nat and
Mhm.
just the world, and seeing him with his family is just like, it's just tearing me apart. I really enjoy like focusing on the characters.
Mhm.
So for Loki, I was like, oh, and also just Tom Hiddleston is such a phenomenal actor.
Yeah.
Like
He
he's so
he
good at what he does.
mhm.
So I'm
He
just
did a
watching him
really good
like
job.
I'm just in awe. I'm just in awe, like as an artist, like watching him, and also as like a consumer of like the show. So both.
Yeah.
I'm just like, you are so good at your job, and also Loki, I'm so sad for you.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I definitely, the cast was definitely like, they brought it for Loki. They brought their A game and they did an exceptional job. The acting was like, and I feel like across the board, people, even if like people didn't like Loki, they can agree that like the acting was very
Hmm.
well done. One
Yeah.
thing that you mentioned that I want to ask you about, talking about how like focusing in on the characters and their growth is like part of what's made Phase 4 so special. How do you think that's going to work with Doctor Strange in Multiverse of Madness? Because if the whole concept of like all these characters coming together is true, it feels like there wouldn't be enough time to really focus on Strange. Well, what are your thoughts
Hmm.
about that?
Well, I feel like it is a common, it was, or at least it was a common fear and argument for why like Andrew and Toby shouldn't be
Hmm.
in, or even like Daredevil or anything should be in No Way Home. They're like,
Right.
it's gonna take away from Tom's story. It's gonna
Hmm.
take away from like actually letting it be his movie. It's gonna turn into like an Avengers movie or
Hmm.
something like that. And I feel like they demonstrated there that they're like, listen, we can have this overarching story and have all these other characters that like mean something, but it's ultimately like how they are affecting Tom. And I felt it was really like they did it very well in like still making it Tom's movie, in having him go through all these things. And I know it's kind of silly to say, but he is like going from like Spider Boy to Spider Man, because he has to like have these real life things, and he is actually like becoming an adult and being college age now. And this whole time he was like 14, 15, which
Yeah.
we don't, which is sometimes hard to like realize and notice, especially with obviously older actors, because like
Right.
we know Tom's not that age. But
Hmm.
I feel like they did a good job of letting all these other characters in, like Andrew and Toby and Doctor Strange and
Mhm.
Jacob and Zendaya in, but still as like influencing factors, and
Mhm.
just kind of like a way to further challenge and also support, like Tom Spider-Man as he's like figuring out who he is, because he's always been in this stage of, oh, who am I? Oh, I got Iron Man's help in Spider-Man Homecoming. And that's like, who am I without Iron Man? Except
Right.
I still need, Shield and Nick Fury, who isn't actually Shield and Nick Fury, but and then Mysterio, and then I'm tricked, and then oh no, I'm in this predicament. I still need these other people's help, but these people are like bringing me to this place where now it's like, oh, it's just me. Like
Mhm.
I am Spider-Man and I have nobody else. I feel like it's gonna be something similar to that. Because you watched What If
Yes.
with the Doctor Strange episode. I loved that episode and was
That
crying so
episode.
much,
I was
so much, because we've never really talked about, like, because I know in that aspect it was like what happens if you lose, is it,
if he lost his heart instead of his hands, I
mhm.
think.
I
Yeah.
feel like we never saw that side of him, which I know some people were bothered by, which was like we never like he never like loved her this much, but I was like I'm rolling with it.
Yeah.
I was like I'm assuming he did, and I
Yeah.
loved it, and I was just like breaking down watching him have to like deal with this, and I feel like it's gonna be going through some similar things. So I think I don't it's all a little tricky because none of No Way Home happened. So it's like I'm not sure
Right.
like what we can go into with Doctor Strange, because like we don't know what he knows, and like
Right.
how what just happened affected him, because it didn't happen. So I'm
Mhm.
not sure what place he's at when we start this movie, but I do feel pretty confident that you know, since it is his movie, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, I don't think it's going to become Wanda's movie or like Wong's movie or whoever the cameos are. I do
Right.
feel like him dealing with Mordo and, evil Doctor Strange
Mhm.
and uh who's the it's not Miss America is a beauty pageant.
I no, I think
America
she does
Chavez.
go by Miss America, America Chavez, but I think she does go by Miss America
Okay, yeah.
actually.
Oh, what? Okay. And like having her in it too,
Mhm.
I feel like we're still gonna like see how he's dealing with like seeing his worst self. And
Right.
maybe because there was a shot of him at um what's his love interest name?
Christine.
Christine, at
Christine.
Christine's. It looked like he was attending her wedding. So
Right.
like lots of different things where we're gonna see like a little more of the Doctor Strange we saw in that What If episode.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it will still do a good job of focusing in on that, because they've been very intentional about that in every project, and I doubt they'd be like, you know what, let's just have fun. Let's throw it all out the window. Cameos, cameos, cameos. Like I don't think they like rob us of this opportunity, especially because he's becoming such like an influential figure in like helping Spider-Man, and helping America Chavez. Now
Hmm.
I assume going to
Yeah.
be more in that mentor role,
Hmm.
and probably kind of just helping, you know, uh, start the Young Avengers start brewing. I feel like he's
Yeah.
he's kind of coming into that like larger Tony Stark role, I guess.
Hmm.
Which I know we were all like, who's gonna be Tony Stark? Is it Spider Man? And they even say that in the movies and shows. It's like, are you gonna be the next Iron Man? I feel like
Yeah.
he is definitely the like becoming like the dad of the MCU at the moment.
Right. Right.
And I think this is a good moment to be like, oh, let's talk about his feelings, because he's really
Hmm.
going through really, really
He's
going
going
through it
through
right
it. Yeah.
really going through it right now.
Hmm.
So I'm really excited for that. And I think even though Wanda will be in it and we'll see like what happened after Westview and she'll be a bad guy, I don't think they're necessarily gonna like focus as much. Mm, I'm thinking like opposite of Doc Ock. No, I'm saying yeah, opposite of Doc Ock, how he's
Hmm.
like bad and then good. I'm thinking
Right.
opposite how we still like saw how he was affected, and we were with him quite a bit, except
Hmm.
he wasn't like main character. And we weren't
Right.
like, let's hash this out. Like let's do we need to unpack some things, Doc? Like I feel like it's gonna be more
Hmm.
that direction with Wanda. Because we'll still see her, and I think any amount we see her or talk to her, we're still gonna be like, oh, Wanda, Elizabeth
Yeah.
Olsen. You know, I feel like she'll definitely be there, but as an antagonist, and we'll get
Hmm.
to like be like, okay, Doctor Strange, how are you feeling about this? Because this has all been left to you, and now it's all falling apart. Theoretically, which that's also the thing is like I because they're kind of making what if canon in a way.
It is. Yeah. It is canon. So the well, continue your thought before I
Well,
start
well,
talking.
yeah, because I was gonna ask like I don't necessarily know exactly what is prompting like this cataclysmic event.
Right.
If it's maybe Wanda becoming Scarlet Witch in the Darkhold, how she's like, you have no idea what you're done. If like
Hmm.
that's what's happening, or if it's Doctor Strange trying to hold back those people now, or even people are talking about how like the Ancient One. There's a line where she said like I think it was with Bruce when he went back and talked to her and tried to take one of the stones, and she's like, "Listen,
Yeah.
if any of them leave, blah blah blah." He said, she said like she had made a mistake, and people
Hmm.
were thinking that meant something that happened in the movies, but they were like,
Right.
"What if she meant when she split Doctor Strange into two people in What If?" They're like, "What if that was the event?"
Huh.
You know?
Yes.
People
Yeah.
were saying that, and I was
Okay.
like, "Oh, like we're reaching forward and back," like so that's why I'm thinking maybe that's the event is like the presence of this
Yeah.
Doctor Strange. I don't know. That was super interesting
Huh.
watching the episode for me when that happened. I was like, my mind, I like, you know.
Yeah. Well, because my thing with the multiverse is like a question of like when the multiverse actually comes into existence.
Mhm.
Because the whole thing with like Loki and the TVA was that they were doing like the sacred timeline. But then when Sylvie kills Kang, that's what essentially opens up the multiverse. That's where you see everything branching off. So it's like, okay, obviously that had to have happened before, before Spider-Man No Way Home,
Mhm.
before the events in What If with Doctor Strange, like even potentially before the first Doctor Strange film, because the Ancient One talks to him about the multiverse and everything,
Yeah.
which is like I don't
So
know how to make it make sense together.
it's a I've because I've seen this. There's this one guy who's like he's like pretty sciencey. I guess
Hmm.
that's the right word.
Yeah.
There's a better word for it, but he's pretty sciencey, and he was
Yeah.
like explaining. He's like, okay, let's like explain because there are actual theories about like a multiverse, but he's like how it pertains to the MCU,
Hmm.
how it's like an exponential effect from like the beginning of time, and it just like keeps branching and branching off its own branches because like the TVA I
Hmm.
feel like existed to like serve like he who remains his purpose. So like they were only pruning timelines that like affected or like stopped like the sacred timeline from going to where it was going. Because
Okay.
like the existence of Andrew and Toby,
Yeah.
like if it was like the multiverse opened only when she killed Kang, if
Hmm.
well, that's the thing because they're technically out of time, so that could have happened at any point.
Yeah.
So like, let's say
Yeah.
theoretically that was a point in time that she like killed him, and it was like during Loki. It would make sense that Andrew and Toby have been living their own lives in their own movies because if she
Right.
killed them, then it'd start branching from there, and they'd all be Tom Holland, but with just little differences.
Right. Right.
Instead of branching off when they're born and becoming
Hmm.
different people.
Right.
So but I guess if they're out of time, if she's out of time, I think you could definitely argue that some point in the
Yeah.
loop of the sacred timeline or any of
Hmm.
it, she killed it. And the the presence of the multiverse has always been there because
Hmm.
she killed him at some point in this loop. So
Right.
like the ancient one talking about the multiverse happened after Sylvie killed him because it happened at
Okay.
the time.
Right. Well, it's so thinking about how it happens outside of time, you could also argue that like there are branches coming off at like multiple points in history. Like it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
all it like so it could be that like it goes back like let's say Peter Parker, for example, sticking to
Uh-huh.
that like it goes back like maybe three Parker generations back, which then
Mm-hmm.
impacts like why they would look different or something like that. Like
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
it
yeah,
could even
yeah.
go further back. It could go and there could be, you know, branches that occur like after No Way Home or like during No Way Home where it's like a universe where maybe Strange didn't have to cast the spell for everybody to
Mm-hmm.
forget Peter Parker. Like so it could
Yeah.
happen like different points, I guess, but it's still like I'm just hoping that Marvel like sits us down in Multiverse of Madness and just explain like just kind of help us understand like how exactly this works because it's confusing.
They'll for sure be like, the classic 5 minute brief explanation, and then you're still
Yes.
like, I understand for the purpose of the movie, but not for the purpose of like everything.
Yeah.
So you're like, in this moment, I think I'm tracking, and then you're
Mm-hmm.
like, actually, wait, like explain a little more. So just like, the time heist where we get like just a
Yes.
little explanation, like this is how
Mm-hmm.
time travel works. Trust me,
It's like source, just trust me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just trust me about it. I feel like we'll get something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because even like with Endgame, it was like the writers and the directors disagreed on how time travel works. I feel like
Yeah.
we may like just stay in a state of limbo, maybe even with like the multiverse, if they're
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, it started here, or no, it started here. It's the multiverse has always been there because the TVA never existed because
Right.
she's like always going to kill Kang. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's part of the loop. It's like I feel like and maybe there's like a sort of like fun in not having it explained
Yeah,
that they
it's
make,
true.
so we can always like assume, oh no, like I believe it like started here and this is
Mm-hmm.
why. Because if you explain it outright, you still have the people who are like, I like this better. But if you don't, then everybody's talking about it like we are now,
Yeah.
and discussing how could it possibly be this way.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's all very interesting to think about because
It
they're
is.
like real life concepts that like
Yeah.
aren't real now, but there are like real theories in our world about it. So
Mm-hmm.
you're like, how does this apply? And how can we use it in this world that like the multiverse does exist?
Mm-hmm.
I find it very intriguing.
No, I do too. And it's especially when it's something like that where it's like you're saying there are theories and concepts about this like in our real world but
Hmm.
like nothing's been proven yet so they can really like bend, I guess for a lack of a better
Oh
word,
yeah.
bend any rules that they want because it's there's no actual science yet to like fully prove this theory one way or another, so they'll make it work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
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 And then they have so much creative freedom, They could
Exactly.
just they could do whatever, be like, "Oh no, this is the actual rule."
Yes, yes, so Ant-Man, Quantum Mania, multiverse heist. Let's
Yeah,
go. Let's
multiverse
go.
side. Wait, did you? Okay, I try and stay awake from like, because I know for some people, like part of the like fun. I love just hearing the theories, but for some people, they're like, I love like looking for the leaks and the
Oh yeah.
theories. I personally like try and stay away from leaks
Yes,
because some of them
me
are
too.
fake, some of them are real, but I'd
Hmm.
rather obviously if they're leaks, they're like probably trying to intentionally not be released.
Yeah.
Um, but but like there was like because I when they showed the Quantumania like logo
Oh yeah,
and
the
just a bunch of
ooh.
like
Yeah.
like that was an entertaining leak. But there
Yes.
was like something where it was just like Ant-Man's helmet and it was like broken. And that's all it was. And I was just like,
Oh.
what are you trying to tell me? Uh I'm a little scared now. Like and it was like no context. That's like all it was. And I was just like, I don't know what this means. So I feel like that's gonna be a, I don't know. Marvel
Yeah.
can do anything. They
They
can kill off anybody, and they're
mhm.
kind of showing that. So
Yeah. Well, and the thing is too, like they could kill people off, but then still have them come back because multiverse variants,
I know,
like it,
I
so
know.
they could kill off Paul Rudd's Scott Lang, but from a different universe. It's fine. Paul Rudd, Scott Lang is still alive. This was just a different universe, but we'll
Oh
make
yeah,
you suffer through the pain
that's
of
that's
watching him
also
die.
that's also a thing. They could in order to like get these huge threats, you're right. You could like be going through the multiverse and getting variants of like Steve Rogers, who
Hmm.
isn't there to help, but let's grab him. I need his help. Or
Hmm.
even like, uh, oh, I was trying to think because I was thinking of the zombies episode, but kind of everybody died in that one,
Yeah.
so that wouldn't work. But like even just like grab like more Ant-Mans, or
Hmm.
even because here's the thing about Cassie. I'm
Hmm.
thinking because we haven't seen much development, and we probably will in
Yeah.
Quantumania in like teeing her up for Young Avengers.
Yeah.
But I wonder like would we see a like a variant first that would maybe help,
Hmm.
Paul
Yeah.
Rudd in, or like maybe an older version, because like they can come from anywhere in the multiverse,
Yeah.
so that like they're not like on our timeline
Hmm.
proven by like Andrew and Toby, because they're
Yeah.
obviously from like different points in their life, even though
Yeah.
Tom's back here at like 18, 19, and Toby's like
Hmm.
here, or no, Andrew's like 30, and like in
Yeah.
the so it's completely possible that maybe we'd see maybe
Ooh.
we'd see a young Cassie again, as a variant,
Hmm.
or he'd be like traveling through. Oh,
Yeah.
possibilities are endless.
Oh God. It would be cool to see her again, just like as a final like goodbye. And
Or
that
if
also
like,
going back to what we
yeah,
were saying
as a goodbye
before about
closure.
how he missed out like her childhood. And so that would kind of help give Scott like closure,
Hmm.
or like help him like come to terms with that, even though it wasn't his fault. But
Yeah.
still, it has to be hard to like come back and see your little girl and she's all
Yeah.
grown up now, and now she wants to put on a suit and go fight bad guys.
Yeah. It's those. It's like it's like I'm thinking about it. It's like Steve's ending where he goes
Hmm.
back to live with Peggy.
Hmm.
You just said that, and I was like, I wonder, because it also ties in with Andrew lost his Gwen, but
Yes.
like Spider Gwen lost her Peter, and they're saying
Right.
like, I'd love to see Andrew and Emma Stone like
Hmm.
from their respective universes, because they
Right.
lost each other's Peter, and like to come back together. I was like, that's heartbreaking, and
Yeah.
yes, but like, what if it was something where, if where he was in a universe where Paul Rudd never came back from the quantum realm.
Ah, yes.
So like Cassie
Yes.
doesn't have a dad as young Cassie, and then like Paul Rudd stays there. Or like
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
man, the possibilities are, or even just to like
Endless.
say goodbye, like
Yeah.
you were saying, like closure, if they were like passing through and then he
Hmm.
like saw her. Oh, oh man.
Hmm.
Marvel never fails to make me cry. They never fail. And
They
I'm
know
also
how to do it.
they do. And it's so funny because they're like they don't have to make a whole emotional movie. It's just like these moments, and we've been
Hmm.
like living with these characters for so
Yeah.
long that we already like have that backstory, even though it's actually, this is like the interesting part to me about like kind of the MCU in general, is we feel
Yeah.
so attached to them, not because of like how much content we've seen them in, but also
Hmm.
because like our relationship to the actors, and like between these movies. Because
Right.
if you look at like the overall runtime, it's like 36, or maybe it's like getting towards like 48 hours of like, if you looked at like every Marvel film and every Marvel show.
Yeah.
But like, say Loki, we've seen him in a total like, maybe before Loki was like a total of like an hour's worth of content if you did like every
Yeah.
scene. But we feel like so connected to him because like we just like sit with these movies since 2012. So like
Hmm.
that time is like almost is like bond building with like Tom Hiddleston, and rewatching the movies so that they can do these things that aren't necessarily for somebody walking in and just watching the movie like sad, but
Yeah.
it's sad for us who's like watched this character for 10 years, regardless of
Hmm.
seeing him in two movies,
Yeah.
have watched him like this whole time. That's
Hmm.
like super interesting to me, that they don't necessarily have to, do a ton, because we're so invested in the movies and rewatching them and talking about them and like making skits about them and buying their suits.
Yeah.
Like we're so like in it and like related with these characters that we see like in the grand scheme of 12 years, 13 years, we
Yeah.
see so little of, but we feel so like, oh, I've been with you forever. That I've always thought about that. And it's like, how does that happen? I don't know, but like I love it. I love it.
It just goes to show like how talented Marvel is with their storytelling because like you said, yeah, I remember especially after Captain America the Winter Soldier came out, like there was like this whole like uprise of like Bucky fans. And I know some of
Oh
it is, you know, due to like attraction, but there are some who like really just loved this character and you
yeah.
know witnessing you know what he was going through and like the trauma that he suffered. But then when you realize he's only in the movie for like maybe 20 minutes tops and
So
he says like
little.
6 words,
Yes.
but Marvel just has a way of like telling these stories and presenting the characters to us. And also, you know, props to the actors as well, like you were
Oh
saying,
yeah.
because they know they really put so much work and effort into understanding these characters so that they can bring them to life in a
Yeah.
way that, you know, that it is not necessarily common across
Hmm.
a lot of franchises.
Oh yeah. And that's definitely and it makes every movie after that such like so emotional. That's why
Mm-hmm.
almost like the entirety of No Way Home, I'm just sitting there like sobbing. And though like these
Mm-hmm.
little things will happen for Tom or
Yeah.
something, and in like my heart, I'm like, oh no, this is so sad because of this, or like this
Mm-hmm.
little happy thing will happen, and I'll be like crying because it's like, oh, he's been waiting to hear that or something. But
Mm-hmm.
it's like these aren't real people, like in my mind, I'm like, these aren't like, how do I know this about the character? Like, how am I like, this makes me feel like as Andrew was jumping, started sobbing, caught him, sobbed harder,
Yep.
and you
Yep.
talked, sobbed even harder because
Yeah.
like you already know the emotional
Mhm.
impact on him. And
Yep.
then Andrew Garfield portrays it so well, but we
Mhm.
also have like known his Spider-Man and know he's been like sitting with this grief since
Yep.
2012 or whenever the second one was 2014 something
Yeah.
like that. It's like we just know like this is so big
Mhm.
even though so little is said.
Yeah.
Just because we've
Yeah.
been sitting with them for so long.
No,
I don't
it's
get
so
it.
true. It's so true that that's, and I feel like that's part of what makes Marvel so special is that it's, yes, you know, you can have a lot of critics and like people in the industry saying like, oh, it's just a superhero film. Like, oh, it's just like action and explosions and special effects. It's like, that's really just a small part of why people enjoy these movies. Like, when people are going
Yeah.
to a Marvel movie, they're not going to see like, you know, majority, we're not going to see like, you know, oh, the special effects in this fight, like, oh,
Uh-huh.
like, you know, I'm people aren't going to see Multiverse of Madness because they want to see, you know, Wanda pummeling Strange with her magic. They're
Yeah.
going to see this movie because they want to see where Wanda is emotionally and mentally
Hmm.
after WandaVision, after everything that happened in Westview. They're going to see this movie because they want to we've seen, you know, Doctor Strange and What If, and they want to see
Hmm.
what happens to this character after, if it is the same like Strange Supreme or I don't know how
Yeah.
we're calling him, but if it is the same guy,
Yeah.
like what's his deal after everything in What If. Like that's why we love these movies and we go to see them again and again. It's because the characters and their stories, like we want to know what's next for them because we are so attached to them. They mean so much to us. Like it's not just their journey, like we're going on this journey with them and we have been for
Yes.
years.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And it's also, props to Marvel for being able to create these characters within a movie, two movies that are like open-ended enough that you feel like I'm trying to think like Loki, how we
Mm-hmm.
keep seeing him. It's like, is he good? Is he bad? Blah 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 blah. Like
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that where it's not like, oh, case closed. Like they always make you want to see more of them, not just because it's like, oh, I want to see like how good they are at fighting, or like you were
Yeah.
saying, like I just want to see the special effects or like the battle scenes. Like those are awesome. I love watching those. But
Yeah.
it's more like what happened before, and like what happens after, and why, like instigated this fight, and where is it going? Like these characters, they're leaving, Bucky before we like, saying 6 words and being in it for like
Mm-hmm.
20 minutes. We're like, where's he going? Like I want to know his journey more. It's not like,
Yep.
oh, he was just some crazy guy. Then we cut it off, and now you don't want to see him anymore. It's like they keep everybody so people can like relate to them and attach them and want to like, I want to hear your story more. I want to see you and see what you're doing, see who you're meeting, see who's loving you and who you're loving. Like it's just this like beautiful world and like universe that they just somehow make you like relate so well to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It's a phenomenon for sure. Because that
it
I
is.
I don't feel that way about like some of these other not Marvel, like DC movies.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody tries to have like their like dramatic death, and they're like,
Right.
oh no, like this is gonna fuel the character, but without like that background of like they like Marvel can do the same thing now because they have the
Mm-hmm.
foundation for it, and the
Yeah.
fan base and the people who are like, yes, no, I know that Aunt May
Mm-hmm.
dying is wrecking me, and it's wrecking
Yeah.
Tom even more.
Yeah.
But if of course everybody tries to achieve that with like Man of Steel, and then like his dad
Right.
dies, and you're like, I understand I should be sad, but
Yeah.
there's no like there's nothing to go off. Which honestly, that's kind of an Uncle Ben death, which kind of was the case for like the other Spider-Man movies. I
Yeah.
think they handled it better with like Aunt May and making that, because then you're like, no, like you've been with Aunt
Mm-hmm.
May for 2 movies,
Yeah.
and you know how much
Exactly.
he means to us and to him. So that they handled it better there.
They
Um,
did. They did because it
I
would have been
appreciate that.
very easy for them. Like if they're like, you know what, we're not going to do Uncle Ben. We're going to subvert expectations and do, kill off Aunt May. Like that would have been super easy for them to just do because,
At the
Spider-Man always
beginning.
loses somebody in his first movie. And that's
Uh-huh.
what like pushes him to become Spider-Man and,
Mm-hmm.
continue his mission and everything. So it would have been so easy for them
Yeah.
to pull something like that in Homecoming or Civil War or something.
Yeah.
But like you said, no, we were with her for 2 movies. Like we were like seeing her there. She at Tony's funeral and Endgame, like that. Like I was like, oh my
Oh
god, of
yeah.
course May's gonna be there because she's gonna be there to support Peter. And she knew Tony. They were like, depending how you view like the Tony Stark Peter Parker, mentorship, father son relationship, however
Uh-huh.
you view it. Like there's we saw interaction between them. So it's like, oh, of course she's gonna be there. Like it we were with her for since 2016, and you know they waited to take her away from us, and they do it in a way that's it hurt. I was like crying in the theater. I was just like sobbing in the theater, and they're brilliant at
Yeah.
giving us characters to love and breaking our hearts at the same time.
Exactly. I was gonna say like it was terrible and
Mhm.
heartbreaking, but they did it
Mhm.
in a brilliant way. And I was like,
Yes.
dang it, that
Mhm.
was really well done. But why'd you have to go and break my heart like that?
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
so props to them. Because also I kind of assumed, because in What If we had Peter mention Uncle Ben. He's like, my Uncle
Yes.
Ben said, and we're like, whoa, this is the first time you can legally say that, and first time you mentioned it. So
Mhm.
I was a little wary of like when he'd meet the other Peter Parkers, that they just like mention, be like, and he'd be like, oh yeah, Uncle Ben used to, and just kind of mention like we've never heard from him, but he did die a long time ago. But I'm
Yeah.
glad they didn't do that.
Mhm.
Whether like wherever he was or if he existed in the MCU, they made a good call, as I know they do, because they're
Yeah.
very good at their jobs. They made a good
Yep.
call with Aunt May,
They
as much as it hurt. It was a good
yes.
call.
Yeah. It's like it hurts, but I understand it's for the good of the story.
Yes.
As it's that I feel like that's the motto at Marvel. Like it's all for the good of the story.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going the right direction, but it really hurts me.
Yes.
Exactly. Man. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Props to Marvel. Props to the actors. Keep
Oh
doing
yeah.
what you're doing, you guys, because we're hurting, but we're loving every minute of it.
Hurting and loving everything.
Yes.
I love the hurt that I feel.
Yes.
I go there and I watch it again to
Hmm.
have those moments where I'm sobbing and crying again.
Mhm.
So yeah, keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll say this, and then we can move on to the next segment. But it goes back to the whole concept of how we are going on this journey with these characters, that their losses are our losses, their hurt is
Yes.
our hurt,
Hmm.
and it's almost like we're there for each other, so to
Yeah.
speak. Yeah.
And it's weird, but you're like, that's exactly what it is, you
Hmm.
know? So when he's losing Aunt May, like, we're losing Aunt May. You know,
Yeah,
like, I feel like
exactly.
I'm losing Aunt May. And
Hmm.
when Andrew catches MJ and, like, saved Gwen, that, like, was closure for us, too,
Yeah.
of, like, being able to save Gwen, even though
Hmm.
we're not in the movie, we're not in the
No, we're
MCU,
not.
but, like, we needed that closure, too.
Hmm.
As weird
Yeah.
as it is to say, we needed the closure, too. Whew.
Weird.
It's a roller coaster.
Love
Roller
it.
coaster.
It really is. It really is. Okay, so one other thing that I did want to ask you, just thinking about the multiverse in general,
Uh-huh.
in phase four so far, what have been like your top three like multiverse moments that we've
Mhm.
seen so far?
So, well, what classifies a multiverse moment? Because I feel
So,
like most of them happened in No Way Home if we're like talking about
mhm,
like actually seeing the multiverse.
right. So I would say like probably anything that seems like the multiverse or might be part of the multiverse, like in WandaVision, anything that it relates to the multiverse in Loki, What If, I
Oh
guess
yeah,
would
yeah,
also
yeah.
count.
Hmm.
And yeah, Spider-Man, No Way Home.
Yeah. Well, I would say in we'll work back. I'll say three.
Okay.
I definitely really enjoyed seeing, regardless of whether he's Ralph Boner or not. I really enjoyed when he showed up at the end of that
Yes.
episode because that was a really
Hmm.
cool moment. And like seeing
Hmm.
his hair from behind,
Yeah.
that was like, whoa, whoa, what's happening? That was definitely a top moment.
Hmm.
Watching that in all our homes in the pandemic on lockdown is like, oh my gosh, oh yeah. Um, so that was definitely a moment.
Hmm.
Let's see. I'd say okay. Now I'm gonna skip to one because I can't think of two. I definitely, in terms of like experiencing it and like audience reaction as well, seeing
Yeah.
it opening night for No Way Home, it
Hmm.
would definitely be Andrew and Toby coming through the portals
Hmm.
because it was also such a sense of relief as a
Yes.
creator who's been like, they're gonna be in it, they're gonna be in it. And people are
Yeah.
like, how dare you? I hope they're not in it. I'm gonna laugh at you when they're not in it. And then like the little part of you that's like, what if they're not in it? You
What if
know,
they're not?
I'm
Yeah.
like, oh no, I've like said that they are so much. So like to even though like I knew in my heart of hearts, I was like, they're gonna be in
Hmm.
it. When they finally showed up, I was just like, oh, oh, and of course everybody was too, and you're just like screaming in your seats, and you're just like, what is this really happening? Like, is this actually
Yeah.
bringing back like our childhood Spider-Man?
Hmm.
So like, definitely that was crazy audience reaction, to finally see that, opening night, no spoilers, hadn't seen anything, which I feel
Yeah.
bad for the people who like saw it like a week later because it got
Yeah.
pirated so
It's
freaking much.
it was
So
everywhere.
I'm so thankful that like I mean I went off social media for like 4 whole days because the
Hmm.
premiere happened. I was like not taking any chances. I was like no.
Yep.
So I was so thankful that I got to like experience that moment without seeing anything before it. So like because it can never be recreated. So like that's
Right.
definitely top moment. Seeing Andrew come through and then Toby was like what are the possibilities? What's gonna happen?
Hmm.
And then of course people talk about it all the time and whether we like it or not, reposted about a lot. But definitely another moment would be when they're like going to fight, and then they like do their swinging, and then they're fighting together. Like
Yes.
the second half of the battle with like
Hmm.
swinging off each other. That was just
Yes.
like another scream and like, whoa, whoa, did they just, and they're like swinging and
Yeah.
then fighting, and you're like, ah!
I
Just
know.
freaking
Oh
out in
God.
your seats. I love that was my third multiverse moment because
Hmm.
the energy, like it's because like oh man, what was it? I was saying like you see the movie again to like experience it, but like you go to the movies again for like or like the theater reaction and like having people with you is
Right.
part of the experience. Like I could
Yeah.
watch it at home and be freaking out, but having everybody else freak out with me, like it's
Hmm.
just like such an amazing like community and communal
Hmm.
experience to be like, we made it.
Yeah.
We made it to No Way Home. We've been waiting so long. We're seeing everything. So I'd say those moments in the theater are like top tier, like
Yeah.
core memories
Yes.
made right there for
Yeah.
sure. Those are my multiverse moments because
Yes. The swinging, as soon as you said it, I was like already picturing it in my brain, because that's like I've when they're jumping off and they're swinging, and then I remember sitting there and like watching how like I'm pretty sure it's Tom's Peter who like does like the spinny move and like webs both of
swings
them.
them.
I was like, oh my god, this is the best thing ever.
I know. I'm just sitting there. I'm like, oh, oh, and every little thing that happens, you're like, what, and it just keeps going. It's like
Yeah.
that moment. I was like, did that just happen? I'm like, did that happen? Like
It's like I need a rewind button right now because I need to see that
seriously,
again.
15 seconds just back because that was
Yeah.
amazing. I know. Yeah,
Yeah.
phenomenal.
That's is so good. And the when Evan Peters first shows up in WandaVision, that's like one of my top three, like definitely. Because I remember I was sitting there watching the episode, and they're like dragging out the reveal, and I'm on the edge of my seat because I wanted so bad to see Evan Peters again. I was like, this is the time to do
I
it.
know.
I'm like just waiting, and they're showing his head, and I'm just like, who is it? Who is it? Who is it? Show me his face. And it was him. I was like, oh, all is right in the world.
Exactly. And that was also like the first tease of like bringing back anyone we had ever
Yeah.
seen, which is also
Hmm.
what makes it such a cool moment because there were so many possibilities that like
Hmm.
came to be because of that. So
Yep.
when like you saw him in there, you're like, anything could happen. They could
Anything is
bring anybody
possible.
back. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're like, "Well, I have no idea what's gonna happen now."
Hmm.
So yeah, when they're like dragging it out and someone knocks and he's like, that wasn't me, and you're like,
Like,
what?
who's at the
Oh,
door? Who's at the door?
open the door. Exactly. It's the
Yes.
same thing. So good.
It's such a good
They
moment.
just perfectly craft those moments.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And then there's and this hasn't been confirmed yet whether it's like a coincidence or it's like it
Hmm.
was intentional. I don't know if you've seen there was like this whole thing about how the finale of WandaVision, when you time it with the finale of
Loki.
Loki, that it's like when He Who Remains is like we cross the threshold, and it's like right when Wanda becomes like the
Oh
Scarlet
yeah.
Witch.
Oh,
So
I've
it's like,
seen that.
okay, if that's true, then that is a multiverse moment, and that is like
Hmm.
top of the list right there. That's it, and it can't be a coincidence because again, over 10 years of doing this, Marvel knows what they're doing.
That doesn't
There's
happen.
no way like the exact seconds would line up so perfectly for that to
Exactly.
happen.
That's what I'm saying. People are like, it's just coincidence. It's just coincidence. I'm like, this doesn't
Yeah.
happen by coincidence. And they're
Mm-mm.
like, Marvel's crazy enough and has done crazy things
Yes.
to do that just for
Mhm.
fun, even if they
Yeah.
never like explain it or anything, just to have that like continuity with the
Yeah.
two episodes. It's like I have no doubt that was on purpose.
Yeah.
And also, of course, like Wanda coming to be Scarlet Witch was also like seeing her like that. I was like, oh. And she's like,
Yeah.
oh, and you're like, oh, what is happening?
That was like the
So yeah.
moment that like if there was like any doubt about like the power of the Wanda cult, for lack of a
Oh
better term,
yeah.
like that was the moment where you knew they were not going away anytime soon, for good
No.
reason.
And that was
For good reason.
no, seriously. Seriously, that was also a moment where you're like, you knew she was powerful, and
Mm.
also after like Endgame and Infinity War, people were like, Wanda's the strongest Avenger,
Yeah.
and you're like, no, yeah, like I understand that. You see how she's like handling Thanos, but then like you see her do that, and you're like, oh
Mhm.
dang, she's like the most powerful anyone.
Yeah.
Like, just
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful
So
life, wonderful life.
Wanda, she's gonna, regardless of how long she's in Multiverse of Madness and what she does, she's definitely gonna change the course of the MCU from that point. It's like when they say Tony Stark built this in a cave with a box of scraps. It's like Wanda Maximoff just did her wiggly woos and completely rewrote the entire
Seriously.
course of where we're
Yeah,
going.
something's happening. Yeah,
Yes.
something's happening there. That's which honestly, that's why I'm also so intrigued about like where we're going
Mhm.
because it kind of completely depends on what happens in this movie
Yes.
in terms of like how we handle the multiverse and like how much we're pulling from there and like if they like moderately close it but it opens sometimes when we want variants. It's like we we may be living in a state of like, oh no, everything's broken. So now they're like all mixing. Like all our movies from here on out are just gonna be like mix until we fix it.
Mhm.
We have no idea. We
It's
have
true.
no clue.
It's
Mm.
true. It's true because I highly doubt that they're going to resolve the
Oh,
issues with the multiverse in one movie. Like it's not going to happen.
it's same with No Way Home. How
Yeah.
like, you know, they we thought we like defeat the villains and then they were still breaking through and then it looked like he fixed it, but like clearly that like even coming to be is like a problem
Yes.
that was possible for like it almost to destroy everything in existence. So
Hmm.
it's like something's like we're definitely going towards a point that will like explode and change everything. I don't think we'll like build to a point and it's like it's about to destroy the universe and then we're like okay, we solved it. It's going to be
Yeah.
like it's about to destroy the universe. Boom. I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure. Pretty sure.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I see it
So it's
happening.
exciting. It's so
Yeah.
exciting.
It's
We
going to
have
be a great
no
time.
clue. Yeah, it's gonna be a great time. Great time. Fantastic time. Definitely.
Yes.
So good.
Okay. So before we wrap up the episode, are you ready for this new segment that we're doing called Outrageous Theories?
Oh, I'm ready. I'm
Yes.
ready.
Yeah. So
Let's
for
go.
those of you who are new to the show and don't know, Outrageous Theories is essentially I have reached out to my followers on Instagram and asked them to submit their wildest, most out there theories. And it is the job of the guest each week, in this case, Nathaniel, to explain to us how this theory makes sense. So
Okay. I can. Yeah.
best best of luck to you. Are you
Thank
ready for
you.
your outrageous theory?
I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. Hit me.
Okay. So your theory is Hank Pym and Happy are secretly Skrull, which we will find out in Secret Invasion.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, that's not what I was expecting, but I thought you were gonna say Hank Pym and Happy are secretly lovers, but that's definitely where I thought it was going. It's like, okay, I can work with that. Are secretly Skrull. Yeah. So, s- uh, yeah. So there was a moment
Mhm.
where Hank Pym, uh, me going back through all my Ant-Man knowledge of the movies, there was a maybe when he entered the did he no he didn't go into the quantum realm.
He does.
Did, he
He does
does.
to get Janet.
Did he do it in that was in Ant-Man and the Wasp, right? Or was
Yes.
that was only Scott in there? That was
And
only Scott.
Ant-Man, so in
So,
Ant-Man and the Wasp, while Scott and Hope are keeping like the lab away from Ghost and like those mobster guys,
huh?
Hank is in the quantum realm looking for Janet. But
Oh,
then at the
in that
very
little
end, when
ship.
yes,
That's
yes.
right. That's right. Okay. Yeah, because I'm trying to think of a moment to make the switch. Or
Mhm.
maybe a moment. Oh, okay. Here we go. Here we go.
Okay.
Maybe Nick Fury needs him in what I
Mhm.
assume is a sword base up
Right.
in space because Nick was swapped out, which we know. There probably it would make sense since Hank Pym is a renowned scientist and has worked with Shield before. It would make
Right.
sense if there's something that Nick Fury needs help with, maybe with the quantum realm, maybe with something involving time, or just maybe experimenting on how to like utilize the quantum realm and maybe its energy, because I know they were trying to do that. There
Mhm.
may be a point that Nick Fury said, "Get him up here," and they send a scroll down. That makes sense. I don't know
Yeah.
when that could be, but I can roll with you on that.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
Happy, we run into some interesting things here
Mhm.
because of the relationship with May and
Right.
with Peter, but I can see how maybe you could justify them being a squirrel because of like him not necessarily knowing about the Stark tech, or like being like, what? Why are they investigating me? Maybe
Mhm.
that seems like a, oh, I was sent down to impersonate Happy, and now I'm in a situation that I don't know how to handle because I don't know his whole past, or I don't
Mhm.
know about any Stark tech that I might have. I could see that possibly being a thing. So I think they could be scrolls. I don't know when, but
Yeah.
I feel like maybe Happy could be a, he could have been a scroll in No Way Home, and maybe showing up to Aunt May's grave.
Mhm.
Wait, but if he loses Peter Parker, how does that work if it was a scroll impersonating him? Does it like, I wonder.
Hmm.
I don't know. It's interesting. Very,
Yeah.
very interesting
No,
to think about.
I buy it. I buy
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I can roll with it. I can
Yeah.
roll with it. I guess we'll have to see in Secret Invasion.
I
Maybe this
guess
person's right.
maybe they're right, and maybe
We'll
you're
come
right.
back to this. We'll come back to this. We'll be like, oh
Yes.
yes, of course.
Yes.
We saw it coming. Saw it coming.
You
Yes.
heard it here first, you
Yeah,
guys.
you heard it here first.
And on that note, that is it for this episode of the Fandom Report. Nathaniel, thank you again so much for joining us on this episode.
Thank you for having me. It was such a blast.
Yes. Yes, you guys, I will be sharing the links to his socials in the description box below. Make sure you follow, especially if you've never heard any of his singing through the MCU, because those are so much fun to
Thank you.
have them on repeat. Swinging through the MCU is my favorite, so check that one out.
Yeah, Spidey special.
And we'll see you in the next episode, you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Bye.